So I'm happy to discuss some specific challenges for treating lymphoma patients in Brazil. Over the last few decades, we've seen marked progress in lymphoma management. However, substantial disparities persist in large areas of the world. Brazil, as you know, has huge social problems. Despite ranking among the 10 nations with the highest GDPs, Brazil also has one of the highest income inequalities. So it's imperative to take into account socio-economic aspects when analyzing treatment results in Brazil. Data about lymphoma in Brazil are scarce and come mostly from retrospective series with a limited number of patients. Also, implementing clinical trials is still a challenge because we lack personnel dedicated to clinical research, and also our medical system has serious structural problems that make it almost impossible the adherence to clinical protocols. We have recently published data from the Brazilian Hodgkin Lymphoma Registry, a prospective cohort of Hodgkin lymphoma patients from 25 medical centers implemented in 2009. And the first analysis with around 700 patients, the main findings were that the majority of our patients were diagnosed with advanced stages and with a high risk profile. Also, the treatment outcomes are 5 to 10% inferior to those compared to what is observed in developed countries. A subsequent analysis, we studied the impact of socioeconomic status on treatment outcomes on Hodgkin lymphoma, and we found that socioeconomic status was an independent factor associated with shorter survival. And potential explanation for this effect of socioeconomic status on treatment outcomes are delayed diagnosis and poor education among underprivileged population. Another relevant finding was that we observed a higher mortality rate during first treatment, ABVD, in Hodgkin lymphoma, and the great majority of deaths, of these earlier deaths, were due to toxicity and infections. And so these findings suggest us the need to implement and test some preventive measures for this vulnerable population. Although our data is limited to Hodgkin lymphoma in this registry, we think it's quite possible that the same problems, a similar picture, is found in other types of lymphoma in Brazil. Finally, other problems that every Brazilian physician is familiar with temporary shortage of some specific drugs, a long delay to fix damaged equipment of radiology and radiotherapy, also lack of beds to perform transplant and high-dose chemotherapy. Also, we have a long delay to incorporate new drugs and sometimes not so new drugs. For example, bendamustine has only just been approved in Brazil and it remains unavailable. Another example is rituximab, that in our public system, it is restricted to diffuse large B-cell lymphoma and follicular lymphoma in first-line treatment. In our private system, rituximab is available for other indications. However, only 1/3 of our population has access to private system. And even within the private system, we have a wide variation in coverage of new drugs and new treatments. We hope in the near future to be able to overcome some of these challenges.